is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 254. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. Talked last week a little bit about like how we should just stop doing the podcast after our 4th birthday because you said you were 24 when it started and you're about to turn 28. And I was
23 when it started.
Oh, you were 23.
Yeah.
Wait.
I was
okay,
23.
And now you're 27. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was 22 and now I'm 26. And I was like, we should stop. And then we had like we might have had our longest like time in between podcasts.
Yeah.
Which we kind of told you that might happen. Like we were going to wait for the Big 12 to release the schedule. And if they hadn't released one, we'd do a podcast on Friday. And sure enough, yeah, if you want to send complaints, send them to the Big 12 because we don't have a schedule yet, which, should be next week according to Baylor's AD. So that would
Which now this podcast is going to be dropping Friday night, Saturday morning, which is peak, podcast listening time. So I'm sure plenty of you will be catching this episode. But I do have to say, we try very hard to never miss a week, and we may have miscalculated on the schedule release, which happens. That's life. And a little behind the scenes, one host suggested that we just not do a show this week, and the other host said, "Come on, we got to do a show." And I'm not going to tell you which host was which, but I think that just shows.
I don't think that's how the conversation went, but
that's exactly how it went in my head.
We weren't sure what our topic was going to be, so we were like, "Do we want to just like force a topic, or like do we just skip a week because it's?"
And one host said force a topic, and guess what we have?
I said, "All right." I was good either way. So
I like that idea.
That other host was good either way.
I like that our idea of force a topic is discuss Bailey's time at the Senior Bowl and his exclusive interactions with UCF players. It's like our forcing a topic, but yeah, we are. And then basketball, because we know you guys love it. We actually got some solid feedback from the last. I got a couple comments about people saying, "Hey, do more basketball." So we're not going to do more, but we won't do less.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
Does this not qualify as more though? We just did it 2 weeks ago.
We're going to do more, but not a lot more.
Not egregiously more.
We'll only do more. All it took was the Big 12 not releasing the football schedule when we thought they would, and us suddenly not having an episode topic. So surprise, basketball.
Great point. Yeah, so we'll do basketball. We'll get to there in a little bit, but we'll talk first about, my time at the Senior Bowl, talking to some of the UCF players, and also just UCF's draft hopefuls for this year and kind of recent history of the draft. Because we're getting in that time where now, it's the last day of January. We're wrapped up the Senior Bowl. Actually, I keep saying that, and that's kind of how we act, because my trip to Mobile for the Senior Bowl is just for the practices. The actual Senior Bowl game itself is on Saturday. So you can tune into that and watch UCF players, RJ Harvey, Brandon Adams, BJ Adams, Mac McWilliams, and Kobe Hudson, who was added to the roster the last day of practices. So 4th player there.
He was shopping when he found out that he would be going to
Was he really? Did he say shopping for what?
I didn't read that far. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm curious now. This has the potential to be a pretty good year for UCF in the draft. It hasn't always been the case lately. They had 4 draft picks in 2018, 1 in 2019, 1 in 2020, 5 in 2021, which still kind of looking back seems crazy. 1 in 2022, 0 in 2023, and that was the big disappointment. And then 2 last year. I think kind of looking at things, it could be as many as 3 or 4 this year.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, it is. Because, it's kind of the big recruiting pitch that a lot of players do want to hear is like, hey, we put guys in the NFL. And
do you think that I have 2 thoughts on that, actually? Thought number one, do you think that doesn't matter that much this year because it's a new regime now under Frost? So that doesn't really work in negative recruiting as well, because Frost would just be like, well, yeah, that was the last coach being bad. Because Frost can just be like, look at the draft after my time at UCF and look at all the guys who I put in just 2 years at UCF. And I mean, how many guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 guys were drafted in 2 seasons that Frost was here. It's pretty solid.
Yeah. And I do think it should be a pretty good year. Obviously, RJ
Can I
Harvey,
say really quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry, I realized I said I had 2 thoughts, then I only gave you 1.
Okay, give the other one.
I
wasn't sure what I was going to say next, so that's good.
My other thought really quickly is I'm wondering if a lot of this I used to really care about how many guys get drafted, which I think is a natural thing to care about when you care about a school. Does it matter less in the portal era? Like, is Mac McWilliams really, if Mac McWilliams gets drafted, it's like, I don't know. I just wonder if there's so much portal movement now that that's not as big of a deal in recruiting as it maybe was 5 years ago.
Maybe not. And again, this is probably more back to the point of it mattering less because of the coaching change. But if, say, Gus was still here, which I don't really want to think about that possibility, but if he was, maybe it even helps that with the portal, you can say, like, Mac McWilliams transferred in here for 1 year, and now we've gotten him into the NFL.
That's honestly, that is a good pitch to, which, I'm glad that's not a pitch that UCF can use, because that would mean there would not been a coaching change. But yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it. I also wonder if I'm derailing us so early. I also wonder if it's a little different because you used to have draft. Obviously, every player wants to go to the NFL, but draftability was also really important because even getting somewhere where you can try to be like a late round pick was important because that's your chance to try to get some money. And now it's like, if you can be a good college football player and make more money during your time in college than you're going to make if you're not a high round draft pick. So I wonder if it's also like, it's probably more about now, like, what are you going to pay me than, can you get me drafted? Do I know that I'm going to get drafted at least late if I go to your school?
It's funny. I think it was, I'm trying to remember where I read it. I think it was in the Sons of UCF newsletter this year that Adam wrote, this week that Adam wrote about Dylan Gabriel and was talking about like how Dylan Gabriel has made more through NIL and through the last couple of years of college than he probably will if he's drafted in like the 4th or 5th round, like he's expected to be. Like he's so yeah, that is the case where I think a lot of it is NIL based and what can you pay me now? But guys, obviously the dream is always still to get to the NFL. So yeah, it does kind of suck though that if Mac gets drafted, they can't be like, oh, you transfer. They kind of could to an extent, I guess, just because it's like, hey, this guy came from, where was he before? UAB. Mm-hmm. Like I said, he went from UAB, came to UCF, in the Big 12, and they could even say like even on a 4-8 team. The spotlight that was on him, got him invited to the Senior Bowl and got him whatever. Like they could still use it, I guess. But
I think that is an interesting pitch to make because we sucked and we're terrible and we're still sending guys to the draft. I don't know.
And because it's not Gus making that pitch, the player can't be like, then why did you guys suck?
Yeah, he'll be like, we're going to fix that. But even when we're at our lowest, we're still sending guys to the draft. Did they send anyone to the draft after 2015? No, they didn't. After 2015, but
no, but plenty of those guys from that 2015 team did get drafted.
Yeah, I'm curious how much under Frost. I am curious how much of a recruiting pitch. I mean, obviously draftability is a big recruiting pitch, but I do wonder. It's like it's a weird time for UCF. It's a new staff. It's I don't know. It's interesting.
It's still. I don't know. It's always nice, even beyond the recruiting stuff. Like seeing UCF players in the NFL is always going to be like a point of pride.
I really, really want RJ Harvey to do well in the NFL. I don't know. Like, I guess that's a stupid thing to say. Breaking news. UCF fan hopes RJ Harvey has a good NFL career. But I don't know. I've just been thinking about it. And he, as you saw, he had a very strong Senior Bowl performance, it seems like. And I don't know. I just watching some of that and some of those clips of him doing well against some of the top players. I was just like, he's a guy. It would be very cool if 5 years from now, he's still a guy who you're seeing in the NFL or a guy you actually see catch on and do well. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, and what's so weird about the Senior Bowl is like with running backs, and I think a lot of the clips that were coming out were like one-on-ones, like pass catching, stuff like that. The practices are so like low on contact that like for a running back, it's kind of hard to have a great week. And I still feel like people, he did enough to stand out where people were like, this is a guy to watch. I'm curious about the game itself because it is like what the week ends with, obviously, and like all these great players playing in this game. But there are also like 8 running backs. There's like 4 on each team or 5 on each team. So I'm curious to see how much he'll get to play. But yeah, I mean, he in his limited opportunities in that game, maybe he could even put a nice bow on the end of his week. But he was someone like I'll kind of get into some of the. It's weird because the mock drafts are going to be more so updated after this weekend, after the Senior Bowl week fully wraps up. But he's someone that I've seen kind of going like between the 3rd to 7th round. Like there's a huge range right now, but right now for me, like I'm like just get guys drafted. Like even if it is the 7th round, like get him in the league. And for RJ Harvey, it's a guy like he just needs a shot, and I think very quickly he'll be somebody who will prove his value to an NFL team.
3rd to 7th round is so stupid. That's like we're gonna give our 2025 predictions. I'm gonna be like, I think UCF will be somewhere between 4-8 and 10-2.
Well, it's just so. It's so different, like because some of them do. Like some of them, I saw him in as a 3rd round pick in some mocks, and then other mocks I've seen him in the 5th, the 6th, the 4th, 7th. He's all over the board right now, and I think we'll kind of see more narrowed down as time goes on. But yeah,
can I ask you some NFL questions?
Sure,
I have a couple.
Hopefully I know the answer.
if you've listened to this, they're going to be really in depth. How do you pronounce Duval? Is one of my first ones, but if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you'd know that I am not a big NFL guy. My interest kind of stops at college. So the draft episodes are always fun because I'm just kind of like, take it away, Bailey. Let's see what happens. When you're talking about it, like RJ getting drafted, how much of what he does between now and the draft matters versus what he's already done? Does that make sense? Like how much of it is actually his in college performance versus like what he says in these meetings or his measurables or whatever?
The answer is it all kind of matters. Like I think it depends on the team too, because some teams probably put more stock in measurables than others. Obviously, like I think what he measured in at the Senior Bowl was, I think he was like 5'9", I forget what the weight was. But he's a little smaller, obviously, but I don't know, like some teams are going to see that and like not care. And I think a lot of it will come down to what do they see on tape, which for him is going to be very, very good. And what, like when they meet him personally in these meetings, how he answers some of these questions and the kind of just the connection, the character, all that stuff, which again, I think teams will like him a lot because I think he's a really good person. So yeah, I mean, it's everything, but that's more so. Here's what I think actually maybe the chronological.
What's happening?
Is there chronology? Is that a word?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know how things happen in chronological order. Sure. Is obviously the tape is what gets him these opportunities, like to be at the Senior Bowl and to potentially be at the NFL Combine and stuff. And that will put him on more teams' radars when obviously these teams otherwise maybe you don't see some of these guys and he'll just kind of fall by the way.
It's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, which is unfortunate in a lot of cases, but I think, obviously being in the position he's in now, not everyone gets to be there. And now that he is, his name will be out there more. He will get some face time with NFL scouts, NFL personnel, and I think it'll pay off. And I mean, that goes for all of these guys for them to have four guys at the Senior Bowl after Kobe was added. I think, and I don't know, it's definitely the most they've had since I started going, which was only a couple years ago.
It's been a minute since they had this many.
Last year was what? I think just Javon, right? Was there any more? I think it was just Javon. And the year before that was Alex Ward. So like as a long snapper, I don't know what you can really do other than like the meeting time, but you're not a draft pick as a long snapper typically.
It's a meet and greet if you're a long snapper, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we like you. We like this person. Like we'll call you after the draft's over and see if you want to come and work out for us.
It's funny you talk about RJ and his measurables, his height, and it's like I've seen RJ Harvey. I've been in rooms with RJ Harvey. You took a photo with him, and when I saw the photo, I was like, man. It's
funny you say that. I was talking to my dad this morning on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, it seems like you had a fun trip." I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "I like the pictures you posted," and he's like, "You're bigger than RJ," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I think he measured like 5'9", so I'm a few inches taller than him, and he was like, "You could have posted that and been like, yeah, I was his like lead blocker. I blocked for this guy." And I was like, oh, and I did. I saw that picture and I was like, I don't know, like what was the one? There was a situation a couple years ago where I think it was Mina Kimes, who works at ESPN. She took a picture with some NFL player, I forgot. She was like taller than him, but she was also, I think, like standing in front of him. So people were like, "Oh my God, how small is he?" And she was like, she felt bad because like that image was out there. And she's like, I'm a little bit taller, and also it just looks like that. And yeah, the picture's like, it's a much smaller scale, but that picture of me and RJ, I'm like, I'm really not that tall and he's not that short. It's just kind of what it looks like. I don't know.
It's funny because one of the running jokes for a long time with that was Mackenzie Milton when he was at UCF, because I don't know how tall Mackenzie Milton is, but I believe UCF was listing him at like 6 foot.
Were they?
And I'm going to check really quickly, but I remember whatever they listed him at was crazy. And I'm 5'11". And when I would interview Milton, I remember I had to have my head tilted down, and I always kind of laughed at it. But it's so funny how that stuff, I'm always interested in, like, I don't know what the motivation is behind doing stuff like that.
Because it all comes out eventually.
Yeah, Mackenzie Milton, UCF had him listed at 5'11".
I thought
I'm going to protest that based on my
looking back. I always thought 5'10". I don't know, how close are you to being able to find out what they listed at Dylan Gabriel as? Because I walked by him this week too, and was
This is my
Cardinals.
new favorite conversation we've ever had, is comparing our heights to UCF players.
It was a startling reminder. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Dylan's like smaller. But
UCF listed Dylan Gabriel at 6 foot.
Yeah, he's not 6 foot.
No.
But
it's so funny how this stuff works, because obviously Mackenzie Milton is now UCF's quarterbacks coach, which is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it is a shock to me every single time I see him out recruiting. It confuses the hell out of me. I don't know why in my brain I can't get that. I guess I'm just going to need to see him, being a coach, but it's funny. But like every quarterback he's gone to visit, my immediate thing is I compare their heights. Like, let's see how interested I am in this quarterback recruit based on that.
Yeah. I don't know where to go from here. But yeah, I think RJ had a good week. Again, like I said, like running back wise, it's a little harder to stand out. Like I think more so their route running and their hands are what they can show more than like actual like contact balance. And because like with RJ, a lot of his runs would be he would break a million tackles and teams just couldn't bring him down somehow. And then in these practices, like as soon as he gets through the hole and he's touched, it's kind of just like, all right, whistle blown, and he'll finish out the run. But it's like, we don't know how that would have gone.
But I feel like it's so much of what made Harvey special was early in the run stuff, like how he was just so patient and could
his vision,
find a hole, and how there were so many situations where the play is not there and he just randomly figures it out anyway. And I don't know. I know running back is not a position where it's like it's really hard to get a good one, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of value there where there are guys who rush for 1,500 yards because they just have an incredible O-line and they could just not get touched. And that wasn't. Yeah. I mean, UCF had a good O-line while RJ was here. That helped, but that was his most famous moments at UCF for him making plays himself, and I hope that helps.
Yeah, and then I mean, it's like I said with the running back thing, it's probably geared more toward guys like Mac McWilliams and BJ Adams being able to showcase what they can do, because they do a lot of one-on-ones. They do have the 11-on-11s where they can put good tape out there. And from what I saw with my own eyes, also just kind of more trained eyes than me, people who cover the draft, cover prospects, do evaluations, all that stuff. Both Mac and BJ came out of the week looking like they were some of the winners of the week. I've seen them listed several times, especially on day 3, which unfortunately we hit the road before the American teams practice on day 3 on Thursday. So I didn't even get to see Kobe practice. But yeah, they looked good. And I think what's interesting is like when I look at all these mock drafts and look at where they were landing before this week, because we don't have any of the updated stuff yet, like Mac was mostly 7th round or undrafted, and BJ was kind of like 7th roundish. But from what I'm seeing, like Mac, a lot of people said was one of the best corners out there this whole week. And from what I also read was he's probably going to be a guy that they move inside to be like a nickel cornerback, which again, you can carve out a really good career for yourself there. And people really liked, BJ's height and overall. Yeah. I mean, it seems like coming out of the week, 7th round would be crazy if they fall that low. Again, there's still 2.5 months until the draft, but yeah, I'm very curious to see when these mock drafts and kind of the big boards start coming out, where these guys will land.
I'm thinking about a couple things. First off, really quickly, I did enjoy seeing some of those Mac McWilliams and BJ Adams one-on-ones and thinking about the soft coverage UCF played all year. But it's kind of interesting to look at UCF's recent draftees in the portal era. Almost all of them are portal guys, aren't they?
A lot of them are, yeah.
1, 2, 3,
trying to think.
4. They've had 8 draft picks since 2021, and of those 8, Aaron Robinson was a transfer. Mm-hmm. Jacob Harris was a transfer, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Tay Gowan was a transfer. Trey Nixon was a transfer. Javon Baker was a transfer. Tylen Grable was a transfer. 6 of the 8 were transfers.
So who were the 2 that weren't?
Kalia Davis and Richie Grant.
Wow.
2 Frost guys, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow,
that's my pitch. That's my pitch if I'm Scott Frost, is sitting down and recruiting, saying the only high school guys they got drafted in all the years I've been gone were my guy.
A wild, yeah. I did not even think about that. And I'm looking back now, I completely forgot Jacob Harris' story that he originally walked on at Western Kentucky.
That's right.
And redshirted, then he transferred to UCF.
I think I'm losing my mind. Since Scott Frost has been gone, the players that UCF recruited from high school and sent to the NFL were Tristan Hill, Gabe Davis, Richie Grant, and Kalia Davis. Oh my God.
this somehow is gonna turn into like me getting way too high on the potential of this program now that Frost is back.
Do I need to like tell Frost about this at a presser just so he can start using it? I mean, this is crazy.
I would hope that he already knows that, but yeah, I don't know if he hasn't framed it that way or if no one's framed it that way for him. How do we get this message to him?
I don't know, but does it make you see? I don't know. But I think it's part of that sort of like, I don't know if you as Frost want to sit down and be like, yeah, they've gotten no one drafted in these last few years except, but I do think there's something to be said of like when you're framing about the storyline, if you want to push of like Frost and UCF kind of being the perfect pairing and how they make each other better. Isn't that like a perfect example of it? That Scott Frost left and every high school guy UCF put in the draft in the 7 years he was gone, all of them were his recruits.
Listen to that. Like, again, it doesn't have to be a bad thing because like you don't have to say, oh, they weren't getting guys drafted other than my guys, but you can say, look, I had this success. These guys that I recruited to this place ended up going on to be drafted. And that was back when we were in the AAC. Now you're playing in a bigger spotlight. You're in the Big 12. The opportunity and the path is a little bit clearer for you to get noticed and to get these, these invites and all this stuff. I don't know. There's a lot to work with there, more than maybe I had even thought of until we had this conversation. But yeah, I would imagine.
I'm framing it. All right, I'm going to play Scott Frost, and you're going to play a recruit. What position do you want to be?
Tight end.
Okay, you're a tight end. Bailey. You saw what the last staff did with Randy Pittman. That probably doesn't apply to this conversation anyway. Let me start over. This is better recruiting.
This is going poorly. You're losing my interest.
If I'm Scott Frost, I'm going to sit down and say, I had 2 full recruiting cycles when I was last at UCF. I only had 2 full cycles where I brought in my guys, and that was in the AAC. Those 2 classes, 9 of those guys went on to get drafted in the years following. 9 of those guys, and that was in 2 classes. And I look at you, and now I feel like I'm quoting Moneyball. And, like, is that not the pitch? That's crazy. It's 9 guys from 2 classes went on to become draft picks, even long after he left. Yeah. Now, caveat to this too being, while that is very good for Scott Frost, I do think another factor in the recent draft results are Gus Malzahn's interesting strategy of recruiting guys from high school and then immediately recruiting over them from the portal every single year. Don't know why they did that. I think that played a role as well, but still a heck of a step.
Absolutely. And yeah, I don't know where I was. This is kind of taking an interesting direction of this conversation itself. But
this has been a very good podcast if you try to provide draft insight and I go, what if instead?
No, it's good though. But no, I think it's good because we're talking draft, but it's good to see like these guys making a name for themselves and putting themselves, higher on draft boards. And also, how does this apply to UCF now? Like this is, we're pretty good at this.
It's cool. Drafts after a coaching change are always weird because it is sort of, you weirdly can't brag on it as much as you would, but I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I think
you don't brag about it from the standpoint of like you as a coach. It's just like UCF and what it's becoming. We're getting back to getting guys drafted. We're in the Big 12. We're playing on, you don't have to talk about the results, but like we're playing on Fox. We're playing on Big Noon Kickoff, like stuff like that. And and even the fact that you can say we had 4 guys at the Senior Bowl. We had, I don't know, was it 1 or 2 at the Shrine Bowl? We had more at the Tropical Bowl, all these different things, like probably double digits guys playing in these college all-star games
off a 4-8 team. Like this is UCF at its worst, and it's doing this. And not to discount Matt McWilliams in any way because I don't want to, but I do think that there's an added aspect for UCF fans this year too of RJ Harvey and BJ Adams and Kobe Hudson are 3 guys who were like big faces for years for UCF, which is increasingly not. That's not the norm anymore in this era. And that's kind of cool too, that it's like 3 guys who UCF fans were familiar with and contributed to the program for a long time that you hope are going to go get drafted now and contribute in the NFL. And then they'll do that thing where it'll be like, their little intro video. And instead of UCF, they'll say their elementary school and you'll get really annoyed. Maybe that's just me. And it'll be great. Yeah.
I think somebody asked us about that recently on our one of our mailbags. Like, how do they pick who, like which program or what they say? And it's just up to them. So they could say UCF. They could completely.
What's Dylan Gabriel going to say if he's ever so lucky?
I think we talked. Yeah, we had this. This was in the mailbag because we said he's just going to say Hawaii.
It's going to be like Mililani or his high school.
Probably. Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel, UCF, Oregon, briefly UCLA, and Oklahoma. Then it goes.
Yeah. That's the other thing about the Senior Bowl. I'm sure everybody's seen it by now, but Dylan is wearing for the game itself. He wore it for one of the practices. Is wearing a helmet that has the UCF sword stripe and a UCF decal on the back, the Oregon like duck wings on the one side, and the Oklahoma logo on the other side. So
I swear to God that UCF sword stripe is not the sword stripe. Like that is not the decal UCF wears. I'm pretty sure.
What do you mean?
Unless I'm stupid. I don't know. It just looks like there's a black border on it. And I don't believe UCF sword stripe decals have a black border. So part of me is like, where do you get that?
I don't know. Well,
Maybe
I don't know.
crazy.
The other thing is the helmet is also like a special made helmet. That's I don't know. I forgot that part of it where it was like specially made for quarterback safety. So I don't know if it is that part of the helmet that you're.
Maybe. Maybe there's always been a border on the sword stripe, and I've never noticed it. But that struck me.
I can't bring myself to believe that's something you wouldn't have noticed before.
Yeah, I'm looking at a photo of UCF. It doesn't have the black border. So yeah, I don't think that's like a UCF. I don't know where you got that.
So is that not a UCF sword stripe then?
I mean, it's clearly meant to be a UCF sword stripe,
yeah.
but it doesn't look like it was supplied by UCF sword stripe. I don't know.
Interesting.
we love a good UCF uniform conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Speaking of uniforms, I got to talk to all of these guys, except for Kobe, obviously got added late. Talked to them on Wednesday afternoon, like the media day type thing. And we have some of the conversations I had with them are on Sons of UCF's YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and check it out there. The exclusive part of those which Adam teased on Sons of UCF Live on Thursday night, got it here for you. I've got to ask you, non-space uniform. What was your favorite uniform at UCF?
Non-space? I like all white. Not the. I like light mode, but not too much. I like the regular, just white with the black number. That's my favorite one. Besides the light blue.
What side of the space uniforms? Did you have a favorite uniform this past year?
I definitely say my space uniform.
Space uniform. Yeah.
I like the all black though, with the black with the chrome helmets too. The chrome face mask.
Yeah. Do you have a non-space uniform? Do you have a favorite uniform from your time at UCF?
Yeah, I love the alternate uniforms we wore versus Kansas with the all white with the gold numbers. I felt like that was a very clean look.
Shout out to Mac for just ignoring my question and being like, I picked the space uniform. I'm like, I just said outside of the space uniform. I was like, what do I do here? But yeah.
I have so many thoughts. I have been asking for years about players, about their favorite combos. I've been asking you for years now when you go to the Senior Bowl to ask them about their favorite combos. And in all those years, it's always a blackout or a whiteout. Like no matter what. I'm going to do a new thing next year. Well, I'm going to ask you if you can do a new thing next year at the Senior Bowl. Okay. I'm going to give you, and I'll send you the photos, like 3 combos the player wore, and I want you to have them like pick their favorite from those 3.
Okay.
That's how we're going to do this. We're going to make this like media day.
Sounds good.
Thank you for asking those questions. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And it's funny how my brain works because when you were sending some of the videos over to Sons to go on the channel, I was like, I literally consciously had the thought, I was like, I hope they're not like offended that I want to keep the best stuff for our podcast. And I thought about it more and I was like, no one except me thinks that's the best stuff. Like I'm the only one who that is the although I did enjoy not to put you on the spot you should go check out the video on the Suns YouTube channel where Bailey asks a lot of good questions to these guys and say that again. Sorry.
They're not great questions. They're just pretty basic, but thank you for
I thought they're good questions and they elicited good answers. But my favorite part is when you ask RJ about the documentary UCF did on him. And I don't know if you just phrased it. He didn't for a second know what you were talking about and then he remembered. But in the second he doesn't know what you're talking about, you can hear your voice rise. Like your panic takes off.
No, I told you. I was like, it was a moment of panic because I was like, I don't know. And I think where the confusion was, as I said, the documentary toward the end of the season, because remember they released it toward the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, oh, the one before the season, because I guess they recorded it before the season.
Was it towards the end of the season they dropped that?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Really? Because I don't remember being in pain yet when I watched that. It doesn't matter.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I think, no, we were in pain. I think it might have been before senior night. Because I remember watching it as I was getting ready. That's okay. I was watching it as I was getting ready the morning I was driving to Orlando to your apartment before a game. I think that was on Black Friday, but it could have been a different game. but
Okay.
I think it was that one.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right. You know these things better than me.
But yeah,
But
no,
anyway.
I asked him. I was like, the documentary toward the end of the season. He was like, the what? And I was like,
You were like, the like it was just really funny.
yeah, no, I'm never comfortable really in those settings. I've done it so many times now, and I'm still just, yeah, I'm like, I know a lot. It's different with these guys. Like I kind of explained to them, like I went to UCF, like cover the program with like other players from other schools, like, and that's the setting you kind of, they know why they're there, but they still don't really want to be there. I'm sure they want to be talking to me.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, I want to like make this worth their time. And I just get really in my head about everything.
They all seemed like they were perfectly, BJ Adams in particular, they all seemed like they were perfectly happy.
My conversation with BJ made me even more of a fan. And then after I didn't record it, but I just wanted to tell him about my prediction conundrum.
Did you tell him about it?
Yeah, I told him about it. And he was like, yeah, he said something along the lines of like, I had to get him this year. He goes, I knew I could do it. And so because he had, I think 2 this year, and he had the pick 6 against Iowa State. But yeah, no, I had to tell him about that. And I also explained to him how we have the same initials. I said, my name is Bailey Joseph Adams. Yeah. And he was like really cool. He's like, oh, that's what's up. And I was like, he's the nicest man ever.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, way back in the day, our preview episodes were a little different for games, and we each give 3 predictions. And I think this goes back to like 2021.
It was our first season. That's the only year we did predictions, I think.
Because he was having an awesome season, and that's for some gamer, like I predict he's going to get a pick, and I was like, wow, way to go out on a limb, Bailey. And he just wasn't getting a pick, and it just became this running thing of like, how many times can you predict this? And it was so weird because it was never that he was bad. It was basically because he was good. Like it just didn't really happen for him. But I was so excited when I texted you like immediately when he got his
And so that's the thing. In hindsight, I feel really dumb that I told him this because it was probably a reminder that like, hey, you didn't have a pick your first 3 seasons. But I was like, when you got that pick, it got to such a point with people. Because I think I explained to them like whatever, do the podcast, all that, and I explained to them, I was like, it got to a point where it was a thing with me that when you did get your first pick, people were texting me and like freaking out, and he thought it was funny. So yeah, I don't know. It was a really great conversation with him. I've obviously never interviewed him before. I didn't interview RJ either, but you see RJ in the media more. But no, BJ was really, really cool to talk to. But yeah, it was a good time. It was nice to see all 3 of them there. The only other thing I want to do before we get into the men's basketball stuff.
Whoa. Before we get into men's basketball, I'm going to drop a couple thoughts on their combos. But
yeah, I forgot to ask you that part. Go on.
Are we going with that now?
Yeah,
I didn't really have that much. I acted like it's some giant thing. I don't. A couple thoughts on that really quickly were that the light mode haters are going to love RJ kind of shading light mode during his answer. That's going to build their momentum. But then we come right back with BJ Adams having light mode be his favorite. BJ Adams' answer was my favorite answer. And it's not because light mode is my favorite of the 3. It's because he knew the game and the year that they wore that. And that is the type of uniform obsession. He literally goes, Kansas in 2023, that uniform. That's what I'm looking for uniform obsession from players. And
what you aren't looking for is Max saying chrome face mask, and you're like, they never wore a chrome face mask. And I was like, he means the gold face mask. That was the helmet that he was wearing this year.
I knew what he meant. I was just being snarky when I texted you because Bailey sent me the videos, and I said I liked Mac McWilliams ignoring don't pick space and then saying I liked the face mask they didn't wear this year. But yeah, it was pretty obvious what he was talking about because it was also the helmet he wore to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Which
I thought about that like hours later. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, he's definitely talking about that one.
I got to tell you, man, the helmet, specifically the West Virginia version from this year, the black helmet with the chrome gold stack UCF decal with the white in it, the gold chrome gold, the gold chrome gold, the chrome gold sword stripe with the white through it, and the gold face mask. That I've decided I think that is actually the best helmet in UCF history. I liked it a lot. I didn't necessarily think it at the time, and it's been this offseason as I just randomly see photos of helmets and stuff. Good Lord, man. It is just that gold face mask is a freaking revelation.
I know it can't really be put in these terms really because they only wore it this year for the first time, but that to me now feels like it should be like the classic, like when you think of a UCF helmet. You always said like it used to be like the black one. Which one was that? The Cincinnati 20, I guess for game day, right? Or then it was
I wasn't a black helmet, that was a gold helmet.
Okay, then what am I thinking of? Am I thinking of gold helmet?
I think for the longest time it was the old school UCF helmet, the white helmet, the traditional stripe, and just the stack UCF. I think it became the chrome gold black helmet for a little bit. The black helmet with the chrome stack UCF they wore for the Cure Bowl in 2016, but it's been the gold helmet in recent years.
Oh, I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the gold helmet that then became then it had the fully like the white UCF
the
stack.
gold helmet with the white stack UCF. That is like the UCF helmet. Everywhere, like even like EA CFB, like that's the default helmet and stuff. I agree with you. It should be this black one with the chrome gold face mask. I cannot overstate how excited I am for next season. Frost being back is cool. But them having not just black helmet, white helmet, gold helmet, but black face mask, white face mask, gold face mask. And now that they're actually switching those up, like the black helmet with the white face mask, like I can't, the possibilities are, I can't even, that was like the one thing missing for the 2016 era uniforms was they always just wore a black face mask. And having that now is like, I didn't mean to do this and go on a rant, but I'm so excited for what they're going to do.
I thought you were going to say that was the one good thing about this past season, which arguably that plus RJ Harvey.
They kept the space streak. I'm actually really, given how bad this team was, I'm very thankful that they managed to do that.
Yeah, and they did it in like convincing fashion again, because why wouldn't they?
All they can ever do in the space game is win by a lot. I don't know why. It's crazy. It's been 8 years.
They
just keep
Dylan Risk throwing a Hail Mary at halftime, and it just landed
man.
Perfectly.
Needs to be studied.
Yeah. Last thing I was going to say real quick is, again, curious to see how things fall with mock drafts after Senior Bowl week, but kind of looked at where things are going into the week. The consensus big board on the mock draft database had RJ Harvey at 145, which I think would put him around the 4th or 5th round. Kobe they had next at 205, BJ at 228, Mac at 355. So I think the BJ and Mac are definitely going to be like huge risers from this week. And then again, I was looking at PFF's top 300 players, which was posted Monday. So this again will probably change. There's some Trevor Sikkema, former Pewter Report guy, which I've always liked him, Tampa guy. RJ Harvey, he had 97th overall. Kobe Hudson, he had at 125, which 97 I think would be 3rd-ish round. Kobe's at 125, which would be 4th round. Mac was at 222. BJ was at 265. And this is the top 300. KJ Jefferson was 287th. I have a feeling that will change with time. But yeah, of the top 300, 287 was KJ Jefferson. But right below him or right above him was DJ Uyunglele. So I think it kind of just got to the point where it was like,
all right, I have a question.
Senior quarterbacks.
I have a question because, why talk about basketball when we're 38 minutes into the podcast when I can instead ask this question? Big news, Bailey. The Bucks are out of quarterbacks. They're gone. Can't get any.
Panic.
And for some reason, well, don't worry. I have a solution. For some reason, you can have exactly one quarterback on your roster, but it has to be either KJ Jefferson or DJ Uyunglele. Who are you picking to quarterback the Bucks in 2025?
Do I have to make a decision? Can I just not watch football anymore?
So,
wait. Well, KJ.
Okay.
I don't know.
I agree.
I don't want either though.
KJ disappointed and
Yeah.
wasn't the best option. DJ was just like couldn't throw in any capacity,
Yeah, I mean, we'll I don't know if we need to keep rehashing it because it seems pointless at this point, but KJ got benched for less than a quarterback normally gets benched for.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know. I don't know how the draft conversation ended with KJ Jefferson, but we'll move on. To,
Whoever would have thought.
Men's basketball. Kind of a make or break stretch, maybe coming up here in the next 3 games or so. They're 13-7, 4-5 in the Big 12 after a 91-87 loss at number 11 Kansas. I was watching that game or the end of that game on my phone at a bar in Mobile, Alabama, and it kind of ruined my night because I was just mad. And
I think I didn't help because I was texting you updates while you were at the bar, and I don't think my updates were always true to reality, and I think you were getting a little frustrated with me by the end there.
You know what's even worse? I could say like, oh yeah, I was only going by your text and I had a couple drinks. No, I wasn't even drinking. Like I didn't have any drinks this week. So I was just completely sober and getting mad at you for saying like, oh, we're done. And I look at the score on ESPN and it's like UCF's down by 2 with 4 minutes left.
I didn't ever say they were done when they were down 2. I did say they were done when they were down 3 at one point, but it felt really decisive when it happened.
Kansas had the ball, and you're like, "We're cooked. It's over."
It felt decisive. The crowd was getting into it. I don't know. I thought they were.
Can't count on you anymore.
You don't get it. You don't get it, man. You weren't watching it, and you weren't watching it with audio. There were like 3, and if you're listening to this and you watch the game, there were like 3 key moments where Kansas hit a big shot, and the crowd goes nuts, and it's loud as hell, and then UCF turns the ball over, and they're coming down, and I'm like, it's over. And then for some reason, then it's like, Sean blocks the shot, and they come back and score. I'm like, I guess I shouldn't have sent that text, but
Yeah. It's gotten frustrating with a couple games where it just seems like they can't quite finish down the stretch.
Yeah.
The way Hunter Dickinson is refereed makes me want to punch a wall. But
the foul late where he literally grabbed Chom and they called him for the foul was
what is that?
A surprising moment for sure.
Yeah, I don't. It drives me crazy. But anyway,
you putting your arm around RJ for that photo was a foul in the eyes of the refs who were working that game.
He also gave me the point. He did the little pointing at me, and I was like, "I'm not
taunting.
I'm not the star. I'm not the star in this picture." Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not usually. Let me say really quickly. I'm not usually. We're going to reference that for the rest of the time. That's not even your first RJ photo because you have.
No, I showed him the other one first, and I was like, "Can we get another one?"
What is evidence? Like you've agreed to this before?
I was like, because I asked him. One of the questions I asked him was his favorite game, and he ended up naming like 4 games, but one of them was the Oklahoma State game. When I finished interviewing him, I was like, "I got to show you. I know you probably took a million pictures after that game." And he's like, "Oh, I did." And I was like, and he was like, "Oh," he looked at it, he laughed, and then I was like, "Can we get another one?" And we took another picture. But yeah,
it's funny thing, but I don't know if I have a single photo with a UCF athlete of any kind.
Do you not?
No.
You have pictures where you're in. You have one where you're in the background of media scrums.
Far too many.
Weren't you in Trace's profile picture for the longest time?
Yeah, I was in Trace's. No, it was Brian Murphy for a very long time. Brian Murphy's Twitter profile picture was me because I'm next to him in the photo. I think the worst one ever was. I'm still mad about this. Was WKMG Channel 6. I was interviewing Matt Williams, and they used their thumbnail photo for an article was me leaned against a wall as he's talking, and they took the photo as I blinked, so my eyes are completely closed, and it looks like I am leaned against the wall sleeping while he talks to the media. And the photo is ridiculous. It's him and me, and that's the photo, and I still don't know why they did that, and I'm so mad about that.
I love that. Anyway, back to UCF men's basketball, which I guess we got back there with Matt Williams anyway. They've got a big 3-game stretch coming up here before.
Can I interrupt you really quickly?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I searched their Twitter for Matt Williams and it popped up.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. Okay, now I remember it.
I mean, come on.
Why'd you fall asleep? This man was talking.
It's ridiculous.
It's a very rude of you.
Go ahead.
So as we're speaking, this game's tomorrow. On Saturday, they play at home against BYU, who is 14-6, 5-4. Obviously, them being 5-4 in Big 12 plays means they're right ahead of them in the Big 12 standings. That's a Q2 game. Quad 2. Then they play Wednesday. They play Cincinnati, 12-8, 2-7 in the Big 12. Another Quad 2 game. Who Cincinnati are they still receiving votes? Because
I was getting Bailey knows about that. I've just been rage texting Bailey because for some reason Cincy kept getting AP votes as they were just being terrible. Everyone was like, "Oh, they're a really good team. Just give them a chance."
They're 0-5 in the Big 12.
There's college basketball, and I'm hoping UCF will benefit from this to an extent. College basketball, more than any other sport, pro or collegiate, is the type of sport where a team can just lose over and over again. And people will be like, "They look pretty good losing." It's just an acceptable thing in the sport, but
I mean, yeah, they have benefited from it. It was after the loss to Kansas. It was it was a quad 1 loss. They played them tough.
They lost to Houston and moved up in net. They were totally benefiting from it.
Yeah. And then so the third game of this 3-game stretch before the Iowa State home game is at Baylor, which is a quad 1 game. Again, Baylor's 5-4 in the Big 12. They're 13-7, same overall record as UCF. It was funny after the Kansas game. I think UCF moved to the first team out in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Now they're the last team in as of Friday. The current bracketology has them as a team in the first 4 as an 11 seed playing against an 11 seed New Mexico. Just talking about this makes me it makes me
excited.
Yeah. I'm going to get crushed. I'm just afraid I'm going to get crushed. And I don't know. I guess it's nice to feel things. I don't know.
Well, it's tough because they made the tournament last in 2019, and no one was really expecting them to get back quickly because that entire team graduated. And I think the wiser part of the fan base understood tournament for UCF is probably a once every like class thing, like once every 3-4 years. It's been a while. It's been 6 years, 5 tournaments, and that's all been understandable. And I don't think that's been like an indictment on the program. It's just been the reality of the resources they have and the schedules they've had. But man, this has just felt like the year. It felt like the year all off season, and they've backed it up. This team is obviously very good. That they are consistently, going out there and competing against. I mean, they've proven that they can quite literally play against anybody in the entire country, and that weirdly has increased the urgency for me because you get this team in the tournament. And I want to see what happens because I don't think there's a team they can get matched up with where we just throw up our hands and say, like we did, ended up not working that way. But when they got matched with Duke in 2019 for the second round, it was like, wow, this was fun. Like, there's not a team that this UCF squad can get matched up against where I'm not like, let's see what happens. And that's not a thing they're going to be able to maintain every year. So it's like, that's the urgency for me is, you have a team that can win any games, so just get them in there just so we can see,
Yeah, and right now they're 62nd in net. The breakdown kind of goes like this: they're 3-6 against Quad 1 teams, 0-1 against Quad 2 teams, 6-0 against Quad 3, and 4-0 against Quad 4. So with these upcoming 3 games, 2 Quad 2 games and a Quad 1 game, which obviously that kind of stuff fluctuates, but these are 3 games that I would deem winnable. I mean, most games actually, like you just said, with this team are winnable games, but like these are 3 games where you got to go 2-1 at least in this stretch. Going into that game against the 3rd-ranked team in the nation, Iowa State at home. Especially if in that Baylor game where it's a Q1 win, like you're going to have more opportunities for Quad 1 wins. The games just get tougher than that.
Right. Where
you play Iowa State again. They play Houston again. I forget if my schedule's all the way back there. Whatever. They're going to have those chances. We talked about it, but like you're going to need to grab one of those tough games or 2 of those tough games to kind of get yourself off of that bubble where a bid stealer in the conference tournaments kicks you out like that. That's why these 3 games are going to be so crucial.
That being said, they also are likely, and I don't want it to end up in this situation, but there's a hint of a security blanket, and that if they stay afloat and get to the conference tournament, they have the talent to try to make some noise there, and if they can stack up their resume that way too if it comes to that. But we don't want it to come to that. We want conference tournaments to roll around and be feeling really good and not like, oh my God, I hope they can get in. And I don't know. Baylor is one thing. BYU and Cincy in particular just feel like absolute must-wins to me. And they proved against – I thought TCU was going to be an interesting game. We've seen what they do against top-shelf competition. What do they do against – there's no one easy in the Big 12, but a team that's not having the strongest season. Even then, I think they still have a winning record, and they just crushed them. So, and I think it was on Around the Kingdom this week they pointed out that UCF was swept by both BYU and Cincinnati last season. So those are key games. You win both of these, and you just keep showing you can beat the teams below you and just keep trying to reach up and grab for the ones above you. You're going to be in a good spot. I mean, just keep doing your thing,
Yeah, and that's the thing I thought about when looking at this upcoming stretch is those Cincinnati games last year where they were winnable games, and I think they might have lost both of them by 1 point, but like they were very close games, and by the end of the year, UCF was like maybe a couple 2 to 3 wins shy of being right there on the bubble, and it was like there were some games in there that they dropped that had the results just flipped, which they very well could have. It would have been a different story. And that's why I feel like this, like I called it a make or break stretch, because if you lose these games, your resume not only takes a hit, but then you have a taller hill to climb with 6 games left after that, the rest of February, and then a couple games in March. Like these are the games where, when you're playing Houston, you're playing Iowa State, you're playing the top teams in the Big 12. If you can steal one of those games, that's going to be huge for your resume. But these are the ones that you need to kind of make that record look, tournament worthy and resume. Like you build your resume through these games as well. And they just look so winnable, and it's going to be so frustrating if they can't,
I know.
If the same thing happens like last year where they were close in those BYU games last year too. Same with Cincinnati. Like they've got to get these. They've got to get 2 out of these next 3. If one of those is Baylor, that's huge. And then obviously if they can beat BYU and Cincy and then beat Baylor, then they're going to be feeling real good at 16-7 and 7-5 in the Big 12.
I really want to live in that reality. I really want to live in that reality. I hope they get it done. And regardless of what happens from here, I sometimes try to remind myself a little bit of what the belief was that this program was going to be in this conference, and the fact that we're a year and a half into Big 12 play, and they're fun basically every game. I mean, literally almost every single game they're competitive.
Stressful, but fun.
Yeah, it's stressful. I hate it, but it really is. I can't overstate how insane it is that they went from picked last in the conference, not just when they were picked last going into last season. It wasn't even like for this season. It's like that's where they're just going to be. Like we'll just pencil in UCF there because this is a program that does not care about basketball, does not have a culture of basketball, and it's not going to commit money or resources or anything to basketball, and it's just going to be a bottom feeder. Welcome. It's like UConn football. Welcome to the Big 12. And now they're going to Allen Fieldhouse and they come within. They have the ball with a chance to win 7 seconds left. Like they beat Kansas at home. They take Houston down to the wire. It's like they go win at Texas last year. They beat Texas A&M this year. It's like it really, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. But I'm happy it's happened, and I hope they can cap it off with a tournament season because I know the fan base is just craving it, and especially because the students and the larger fan base have embraced basketball these last couple of years in a way that they have never in my life, and that's very badly wanted.
That's the point that I know I keep making it on this podcast is just like, maybe like you said, there's no culture, there was no resources being put in. Like maybe the resources still aren't where, they need to be for this to happen every year, but the culture is getting there. Like the fact that like it's UCF basketball games have become a thing to do, especially for the students, but also just in general with, these big programs coming in and having an actual atmosphere to face. That's been so much fun to watch, and it is one of the things that like does needle at me that I'm like having to watch from afar because like I would love to be there at every game, but obviously I can't be because I live 2.5 hours away.
You're not committed. It's fine.
Sure, but it's been really fun, and as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about that BYU game tomorrow, and I'm like getting a little nervous, which is not a spot that we're often used to with UCF men's basketball, but I think I'm getting in my head be so desperate for like I want this season to turn into a tournament season that I'm like they need this game, and I'm worried already.
Are we gonna go?
It's like to what
if they make the tournament? Are we gonna
go? That sounds fun.
Okay,
that's my answer.
It's what you say right before you say no.
It sounds fun. I would love to just blindly say yes, let's do it, but I will depend on a lot of things.
I will be there,
no matter what.
No matter what. Well, not no matter what. You never know, but I will attempt to be there very hard. Yeah, no, but it's been fun, and I hope it continues to be fun. And we might all end up getting crushed, but I don't know. I think it's just nice to be in that spot where we were thinking they're going to be bad every year and it's not going to be any fun. Now we're having fun, so. It's cool that the calendar's flipping to February and we're having a conversation of here's what they need to do to lock up a bid. Like that's a good spot to be in. Yeah, no, it is. It's been a lot of fun. Anything else on this? I know it's kind of turned into being a short topic, but we spent a lot of time on the Senior Bowl stuff. But need to win.
Yeah, just win games. That'd be great. Yep. Cool. Yeah, we don't really have any football news this week. I know that UCF tweeted out they finalized the staff. I did remember earlier on the Ted Roof news that Ted Roof is suing UCF. I don't know if we want to get into that, but
I have zero interest in anything.
I don't. Yeah,
there was some news though.
What was it?
I guess I probably should. Do not talk about this. I don't know. You've been gone all week. UCF Matt Murschell's reporting is probably not.
Oh right.
So most likely no spring game for UCF in 2025. I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last 2 years I've driven up for the spring game. I didn't regret it because we had a good time. Like we covered this last one together, but it wasn't necessary.
It was we had a horse race last year.
Yeah,
which was fun, but
Gus got really mad at the horse.
I was at a media access where Gus was. You were too, where Gus was genuinely upset with the horse's performance, which is fair because it was a really bad performance by the horse. But I don't think I don't know. I found myself. I actually what Matt reported is that they're talking about opening up practices and scrimmages to fans. That's way more interesting to me than spring game. So this seems like a net win for me, to be honest.
I'm realizing now. I think the two media accesses of Gus's that I ever went to were after the Gasparilla Bowl against Florida. And then the one after the spring game where he was mad at a horse. Yeah,
that's about right. His highest of highs, his lowest of lows.
Yeah, no, it's just what a time. Game of the week, like I just mentioned it. I mentioned it and don't have to really rehash it. But
I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing really quickly?
Yeah.
I do think it's funny for the spring game crowd that they were like, Frost is going to bring back the spring game on TV. And instead Frost was like, or no spring game at all.
Oh gosh, yeah. Game of the week will be that game tomorrow. UCF men's basketball, 13-7, 4-5 in the Big 12, hosting BYU, 14-6, 5-4 in the Big 12. 4:00 tip off. Got to win it. That's it. That's all I really got to say. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week this week goes to Sam at OheyFritz on Twitter. Former historian of UCF Twitter feuds. I believe he was the one who put that list together that we love of all the fights UCF went through on Twitter. There weren't so many fights this year because it was more just, I think everyone united around the common cause of coaching change needed. But he tweeted, all right, UCF Twitter hasn't argued about anything in a hot minute, which by the way, let me say, like, that's okay. We can just not argue about things. Like, we don't have to find, like, it's okay. We can just not. But he says UCF Twitter has not argued about anything in a hot minute, so I'm going to start something up. Is Olive Garden overrated? Was the poll. I have several things to say here. The first is that I don't believe that UCF's Twitter should be arguing about something that is not an argument. There are no two sides to this. To say that Olive Garden is overrated is to live a sad and joyless life. And for the 47% of you that voted it is, you live sad, joyless lives, and I'm sorry about that. I was disgusted by some of the replies. I was really I was fascinated by the degree with which some of you are wrong. It's hurtful, some of the things that were said. And I want to say that for you haters and all of this, Olive Garden themselves chimed in with the breadstick knot, which is a citronaut with a basket of breadsticks for his body. And for you to see that and call this restaurant overrated is a crime. And shame on all of you.
Yeah, hurtful, really. I voted that it was not overrated, by the way.
I really don't know how you can think it's overrated. I think
because I don't feel like that implies that it's like highly rated too. I think, which like I think it's just haters. One of my other favorite replies. This isn't tweet of the week, but my favorite was at 2 letters 2 words, who replied to me when I weighed in and said, "Spend a week in Rome and we can talk." I've brought Olive Garden breadsticks to Rome. I've done that in my life. I'm also, people always get more horrified as I keep talking. I'm also Italian. My grandfather also immigrated from Italy. He also owned an Italian restaurant when he moved to the United States that he operated. And I think and your mom disapproves of your Olive Garden love, right?
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
it's her fault. She took me there a bunch when I was a kid and I fell in love with the place. Like
she's like wishing she could go back in time and be like, just never should have taken him there. And then Can I say, when I took the breadsticks to Rome, I was 6. And how did that logistically work?
I don't know. I just
you put them in a backpack or like
I'll have to ask my parents. I know that I was like adamant as a child that I was going to do this. And I think we went to Olive Garden the night before the flight and we just asked for a bag of breadsticks to go and we took them to Europe. And I don't know, because I'm thinking about it now and I think now you can't do that, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can bring food.
One of my other favorite parts of this was while we were in Italy, because we took my grandfather back to Italy, where he was from, and he hadn't been back since he was a kid, and that was super interesting. Like, we found one of his cousins, and they were like, "Come in, and I'm gonna go butcher a chicken, and then we'll make dinner." It was crazy. It was a wild time. But he brought back a whole wheel of cheese, if I remember right, and I don't think he was supposed to do that. But I don't know. I guess back then you could just take huge amounts of food through an airport, and it was fine. But yeah, took the breadsticks.
I don't know. Yeah. So what was it? Shame on the 47% of you?
Yeah, I honestly, I think someone bought bots because I don't believe that that's an actual.
I don't know if we can't go that far.
I don't believe that that's an actual representation. It's haters and bots is all I can. I don't think anyone has a real opinion of that.
Haters and bots. All right. Well, that's that. Before we get out of here, have one quick note from last week's podcast. I wanted to address something from last week. Christian and I had a conversation about his fear of flying. I was flying to Chicago the next morning, and it was lighthearted, just, random like stuff, lighthearted conversation. Obviously, it happened before last week's tragedy. And, if anyone has listened to the episode after that happened or hasn't listened yet and was going to, like, it might be jarring to hear that. And obviously, our hearts go out to everyone, affected by that situation. It was terrible. And just wanted to kind of, put that out there that, we had that conversation, lighthearted in nature, and, our hearts go out to everyone affected by it. Just wanted to address that real quick before we go. So ending it there. We will be back next week with episode 255. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at by CA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.